Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I am Brian Emhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. And man, I just couldn't wait. Big Ray Roberts and I are due on at 9 a.m. today, but I wrote my Tail of the Tape article last night about this matchup between the Seahawks and the Lions, and I just could not wait. I had to get into it. I had to talk to you all about this big game that's coming up on Monday. So we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to do two separate episodes. So this first episode, I'm going to take you deep into this game between the Seahawks and the Lions. We're going to talk about different matchups. We're going to talk about different numbers. I'm going to show you some film. I'm actually going to walk you through I'm going to walk you through the first Lions drive against the Cardinals. Going to walk you through a few other things. So all of that in this hour. Then we are going to close up shop and reopen shop. Separate episode, separate link. So if you're on YouTube, wherever you are, you'll come back in for that, and we'll have Big Ray Roberts on. So we will do Big Ray's Rewind. We've got some great film to look at with Ray. Ray is a former Seahawk and a former Lion. So we're going to talk about this game with him as well. So that comes up in the second hour. So I have got my hot water, honey, and lemon juice because I'm still trying to beat back this cold. So forgive me for taking some sips now and then. This is a challenge here to see if I can get through this whole episode, two episodes, without losing my voice. So let's do this. Let's do this. It's great to see everybody in the chat, even some names that I don't always get to see, which I'll call out here in a second. Before we get started, I got to remind folks, if you haven't already, I'm going to be talking about a lot of numbers today. Almost all of them are coming from FTN Fantasy. So FTNFantasy.com gets you access to Stats Hub, to DVOA, to a Discord channel to talk about betting or to talk about fantasy football or whatever else. If you use promo code HBAM, HawkBlogger Mornings, HBAM or HBAM, whichever you like, that'll get you 15% off. That's less than $8 a month for the FTN Plus subscription or greater. It's a huge deal, and I'm a subscriber. Like I said, I use it 50 times a day probably at this point. So use the promo code, get 15% off. I see we've got one of our friends on the show. I won't talk about his first chat because it's not safe for work, but he's liking the Hawk Blogger Morning intro music, and Evan Hill, ASMR Hawk Blogger. No, I'm not going to start doing the little, all that stuff. You see that? I find that stuff crazy, man. I don't know. Different generations. It does not work on me. In fact, it has the opposite effect. So good to have you on here, brother. And looking forward to having Evan Hill on tonight with Nathan Ernst for what will be the third pod of the day. Real Hawk Talk will be back tonight, and we're going to just talk all about the vibes, all about this game, and I can't wait for that. So 6 o'clock Pacific time for that. All right, folks, let's get into it. First things first. I want to start with some film. Let's start with some film. I will get into numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I love numbers. But the first thing I want to do with you all is I want to watch. We're just going to watch. We're going to talk about it, but we're going to watch the first drive of the game for the Detroit Lions against the Cardinals this weekend. Okay? Going to watch this together, and we're going to talk about what we see. So let's take a look here. We're going to go big screen. We're going to watch each play on this opening drive because I think this is an identity drive for the Lions. This is who they want to be every single week. All right. So let's watch this first play. First play here, extra man eligible on the line. heavy set up the middle, and they're just crushing the Cardinals, right? That's a big hole. Zach Charbonnet would kill for a hole that big, okay? Next play, after, gaining 9 yards on the first play, what do? David Montgomery, right down your throat again, all right? And they're just going to keep coming at you. Look at this heavy set, multiple tight ends, run again. Now, they lose a couple yards there, right? So does that deter them in who they want to be? Now they've got them spread out, 4 wides, and they hit an easy one to, I believe that's Laporta. So you're seeing like they're giving you jabs, and then they're giving you some hooks, Again, nice drop back, had some deep patterns, goes to check it underneath. Again, involved in the tight end. That's Wright. I think I can't remember his first name, but he caught a few passes in this game. Again, go to heavy, back to David Montgomery. No. Nice little play action, boot out to another tight end. There's Wright again on this drive. They're just moving the ball down the field. None of these are particularly hard or impressive plays, but look at that hole. Let's watch that again. I mean, look at what the Lions defense does, or the Lions offensive line does to the right side of that line. In fact, I'm going to change my share screen options here. So give me 1 second and we'll get this in a way that I can highlight some things here. We're going to go share the entire screen here. We'll get back to full screen. Oops. There we go. And now I can highlight some things here. Look at this wall. Sorry, I'm not sharing that screen, so you can't see it. Let's try that again. Okay. Look at this wall. Look at this wall. That is the Detroit Lions right there. I mean, you could run any running back in the NFL. It doesn't matter how talented or how not you are. David Montgomery, the play was initially, I think, meant to go this way, but look at this cutback lane. And what does David Montgomery do? I mean, he runs how many yards before contact? All right. Line of scrimmage here is roughly the 25. Okay. Where does David Montgomery first get contacted by a defensive player? The 15, maybe the 14. He goes 10 yards before first contact. That is the Detroit Lions. That is how they want to attack you on offense. All right. So they're just absolutely dominating this Cardinals defense. Again, all David Montgomery, almost gets all the way in. Let's watch that one again. Now, you're getting a lot of these heavy sets. You've got tight end. You got your 5 linemen. You got a very tight formation. I mean, everybody's tight here, right? You got motion coming back. And then watch this. Look at what's happening here. You've got one guy walled off. I actually got to rewind on this because this right here is a fantastic block. This is a fantastic block from their tight end here, 89. I think that's right. Watch just him on this play. Just turn him out. Again, here, turning him out. This guy's at the second level. Ragnow, their center. He's opening the door. Remember, Ray always talks to us about that. He's got his left shoulder turned forward, creating space. And then where's first contact for Montgomery? it's not really. I mean, he gets touched there, but he doesn't really get caught. I mean, the guy is dragging him like this poor defender just holding on for dear life. And still, you have 1, 2, 3 Lions players against, is that, I think, just 2? I can't tell if there's another guy behind here. No, there's 3. I mean, he's got blockers all the way down to the goal line. And he very nearly gets in. I think he does get in. They call him down. But here you go. And on this play, easy. So why did I want to start there? Why did I want to start there? Because this is the Lions. This is who they are. I love the Seahawks. I mean, I wouldn't do all that I do if I don't love the Seahawks. But I really like that Lions team. I like the way they're coached. I like the way they're built. I like the mentality that they play with. I like the challenge that they present for the Seahawks, because if you cannot play against bully ball teams, then you just don't have a chance. We saw that last year. And this is a Lions team that, last season, I'm looking back at it now. How many times did they rush for 100 yards in their, let's even count their playoff games. So they played 17 plus 3 playoff games. Okay, so they played 20 games. How many of those games did they rush for over 100 yards? All but 4 of them. Okay? They rushed for over 100 yards in all but 4 of those games. How many games did they rush for over 140? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 over half of their games they played last year, they ran for over 140 yards. This year, I mean, they are off to a literal running start. They've got 163 yards in the first game rushing against the Rams, 139 in the second game against the Bucks, 187 against the Cardinals. So what has been the Seahawks defense? What's been maybe a weakness, maybe an area, like for a team that's been playing fantastic defense, what's been a concern? It's been run defense. It's been run defense. And when we get into the numbers, which I'm about to share some of these, that shows up. That is one of the Lions' biggest advantages in this game, is that the Lions run the ball well. They run the ball hard up the middle, as we saw with David Montgomery. And when we saw the Seahawks last face a bruising running game, it was week 2 in New England. And what did they do? They ran for 185 yards. Seahawks had broken tackles, missed tackles, I should say, all over the place on defense. And it was a problem. It made it closer. What's the other thing that we noticed on that drive? When they're passing the ball, a lot of tight ends. Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, I think is his name. Is that right? Yeah, Brock Wright is his name. Involved. And who did the Seahawks make look like an all-pro in week 2? Tight end for the Patriots, Hunter Henry. I'd also call out that against the Dolphins, yes, it was a pretty dominating game in general, defensively especially, but there were some holes. And Mike McDonald talked about this on Monday, that he showed it to the team. He's like, hey, the Dolphins are going to look at that film and think there were some plays that we left out there. He's going to show them that there was too much spacing in a couple plays. You do that against the Lions, you're going to get a lot of tight ends over the middle. You're going to get a lot of play action. It can be a real just rope-a-dope. A rope-a-dope isn't even the right term. It's a ping pong. You know, you're going to get hit back and forth between tough run and then play action pass, hitting these little gaps. Your linebackers are going to get sucked up to play that run. It opens up space behind, and then you're able to drop in a pass. And so that's going to be this game. That's going to be the chess match going on. Now, one of the things that I brought up in my Tail of the Tape article, and if you haven't read it, I'll be going over it today in this episode, but highly recommend you go to hawkblogger.com, check it out there as well. You can reference it later. I personally, I do it for my own reference as much as I do it for other people. So I look at these numbers all the time. But one of the key parts of that offense is their all-pro center, Frank Ragnow. And Frank Ragnow played that game with a lot of that game with a torn pec muscle. And as of now, you know, Dan Campbell was on a Detroit radio show, his morning coaching show yesterday. He talked about the fact that Frank Ragnow is doing his best to convince them to let him play in this game. But a big factor that you may not know is that the Lions have a bye week the week after this game. So in that regard, the Lions are going to think about some of these injury situations a little bit differently. Sure, they want to empty the tank, but if there's a guy like Ragnow that they think they want to potentially give some rest to heal up, I think they'll lean towards giving those guys time off, so that they can get better. But here's the reality, folks. It's week 4. It's hard for week 4 games to mean that much. But last year, the week 1 game for the Seahawks, that was the difference between making the playoffs and not. That loss against the Rams. NFC games matter. This is an NFC matchup. This is a title contending team. And I'm not afraid to say this has the potential to affect home field advantage in the playoffs. Like, everyone's like, hey, this is a big matchup. This is going to be fun. This could be if the Seahawks mature the way that we all hope that they do, then this game can mean a ton. So let's get into a little bit more of some of the details. There's a question from a well-meaning follower here, Maximus, asking, do you get anything for us going to the blog, like advertisement hits or anything? I didn't cover that in my video, The Money Side of Hawkblogger. I will just say, as of now, I have no ads on hawkblogger.com. I've had them in the past. I find them generally annoying. I try to limit them. The one thing I do have is I do have some sponsored stuff. So Mondays are Pagliacci Mondays, and so Morning After is brought to you by Pagliacci Pizza, that article, that column. So there's some of that I will do, but it helps me when people read or review my content, period. It helps me enjoy what I do. So financially, as of right now, not as much, although down the line it could. So I appreciate the thought of the question. Let's keep going. So before I show you some more film, let me show you a little bit on the numbers. All right. So, oh, sorry. I got myself twisted up there. So Frank Ragnow, I think there's a decent chance he will not play. In the games that Frank Ragnow did not play last year, because he missed 3 games, and what happened in those 3 games last year is Graham Glasgow, who is their guard, played center for them. And Graham Glasgow is okay at center. He's not awful, but Frank Ragnow missed the game against the Raiders for them last year. This was at home against the Raiders. He missed a game against the Bears at Chicago. Let me double check if I've got this right. Yeah, here we go. And I think he missed the game against New Orleans, at New Orleans in 2023. So, in those games against the Raiders, the offense put up 486 yards. They rushed for 222 yards. They scored 26 points. They didn't score that much, but absolutely dominant game without Frank Ragnow in there. I don't think that Raiders defense was that good. I think this is by the time they either had fired their coach or were on their way to doing it. So keep that in mind. That was also a before the bye week game. So keep that in mind. Again, a similar situation where they took Frank Ragnow out right before a bye week. The games against the Saints and the Bears. Against the Saints, they put up 347 yards. They rushed for 142, and they scored 33 points. So, again, they were still a very effective offense. The third game, where they played, I think, the best defense of those 3 teams, they played the Bears in Chicago. They had only 267 yards of offense. It was their season low in terms of yards. They had 3 turnovers. They did rush for 140 yards still, but they only passed for 127. So, in that game, how many sacks did Jared Goff take? He took 4 sacks. And I'm curious, I'm going to look at the other games. I hadn't done this yet, but I'm curious how the pass protection was. In New Orleans, he only took 1 sack. Vegas, I'm guessing he didn't take, who knows? I don't think he took that many sacks in that game either. No sacks in that game. So, when Frank Ragnow has been out, they've been able to manage. I don't think it's, I don't think that dooms them by any stretch. I do think that one of the things to be aware of is Graham Glasgow was injured as well against the Cardinals. He played with a sleeve on his arm. People don't seem to know if it's an elbow or a shoulder, but if he's going to be asked to play center, and I think it was his right arm that he hurt, how's that going to affect his ability to snap the football? How's that going to affect his ability to play in general? So Graham Glasgow is not going to be 100% for sure in this game. If he plays center, it's not his primary position. And then the guy that likely gets snaps at guard, if Ragnow doesn't play and Glasgow moves to center, is a guy named Coyote. I think it's Coyote, Kayode, Awosika. This guy he started like 4 games for them last year. Overall grade of 55.7 by PFF, pass block grade of 46, run block grade of 60.5. He was generally a mediocre to slightly below average player. So why am I going so deep on the offensive line? Because you saw that opening drive. That is their identity. It's a huge part of who they are. Let me go in to share some of the numbers here. All right. So if you get into DVOA, And that's a good reminder. If you haven't already, head on over to ftnfantasy.com. Use promo code HBAM and get 15% off your FTN Plus or greater sub. All right. Let me put this back up here and we'll take a look together. So you look at DVOA from FTN, and what are some of the things that jump out when you look at these two teams? All right. First thing is DVOA likes the Seahawks in this matchup. Just in general, Seahawks have a lot of advantages, but there's a few things that really jumped out to me. The first is, even though the Lions run offense is excellent, it's number 3 in the NFL, DVOA. The Seahawks are number 3 in the NFL in DVOA rush defense. That is hard for me to believe. I have a hard time believing that, but that I've checked it a number of times. That is the truth. The other thing that jumps out at me is the Detroit pass offense. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, that whole crew, Sam Laporta, 20th in the NFL in passing DVOA, going against the number 1 DVOA pass defense in the NFL, giving up the fewest pass yards, fewest yards per attempt. Yes, they've played the easiest schedule of opponents, but something to be aware of. The other piece here is that we already talked about it. Actually, we have not talked about this yet. Detroit has been known to have a bad run defense. That's been one of their weaknesses, especially up the middle. One of the players they added this year was DJ Reader. Now, when DJ Reader enters the field, teams just aren't able to run that well, especially up the gut. He did it with the Bengals for years. He's doing it so far for the Lions. Lions are the number 4 DVOA run defense in the NFL. Remarkably, the Seahawks are 8th in run offense. It's a little surprising that the Seahawks run offense, that has been very inconsistent, is ranked in the top 10. I hope they will get Kenneth Walker back this week. We will find out today whether he practices, how that's looking. We'll find out a little bit more about that. But I think if you're expecting the Seahawks to be able to go in there and run the ball against the Lions, I'll show you some more numbers. I think that that's less likely of the way to beat this team. There's another piece here, and I'm going to come back to this because there's a few things to share on this, but the Lions DVOA pass defense is 10. So they're top 10 both in defending the run and the pass. And the Lions have played better offensive teams than the Seahawks. Arizona is better than probably any team the Seahawks have played offensively. The Rams are better, even like then they had some players playing. They're definitely better than any team the Seahawks defense has faced. And Tampa's better than any of the teams the Seahawks have faced offensively. So the Detroit defense has played pretty good opponents. I think their schedule is 13th. So they played the 13th toughest offensive schedule so far. And in terms of they have played the 13, I haven't figured out the right way to phrase this. The offenses that they have faced collectively are the 13th toughest for a defense to stop. Hopefully that makes sense. The Seahawks have faced the 32nd, dead last, easiest set of offenses to face so far. So my point there is that this is a pretty good Lions defense from a DVOA perspective. I'm going to talk about some areas of weakness I see there that I think the Seahawks are going to be able to exploit. But going in, it's a pretty good defense and it deserves respect. This special teams thing, I got to say, I just don't get it. I've looked at we'll look at some of the special teams numbers below. I would not pay much attention to this, to be honest. I looked at it. There's nothing glaring that I can see that makes me think, other than the fact that the Lions have done much better in net yards per punt. Their punt coverage has been better. They've got less touchbacks, that kind of thing. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time breaking that down. But here's the thing. Here is the piece to really think about. This Lions secondary. Their DVOA in defending wide receiver 1 is 12th. Not bad. Their wide receiver 2 defense, 26th in the NFL. Their wide receiver 3 defense, 21st in the NFL. And while I'm here, I'm going to skip down to, why does this do this sometimes? Skip down to this piece. So you don't have to read all this. I will read it to you. But this is a heavy blitz, heavy man, heavy reliant on individual corners type of defense. Aaron Glenn has blitzed the 7th most in the NFL. He puts pressure on his cornerbacks to cover in man. And those cornerbacks aren't as good as some of the secondaries the Seahawks have faced. I might argue that this is, from a cornerback perspective, 4 out of 4. And like the worst of the secondaries the Seahawks have faced, maybe the 3rd out of 4. I gave one example of one of the secondaries the Seahawks have faced this season is the Patriots. And I know everyone wants to clown on the Patriots because they got blown up by the Jets. Fine. We'll see how that goes against the 49ers. I'm curious about that. But just from the cornerback perspective, this is a team that plays a lot of man. The Lions play, I think, the 4th most man coverage in the NFL. The Patriots play the 5th most man coverage in the NFL. So very similar. New England secondary, from a cornerback perspective, has Jonathan Jones, who has a 72.4 coverage grade. Marcus Jones, the nickel corner, has a 71.2. And this is after Marcus Jones got absolutely lit up by Jackson Smith and Jigba. Christian Gonzalez is the 3rd corner. He has a low grade of 53.2. But arguably, I think I would take Christian Gonzalez over any of the Detroit cornerbacks. So the Detroit corners primarily are Amik Robertson, 63.7 grade, Carlton Davis III, 55.8 grade, and a rookie, 1st-round pick, Terrion Arnold, 45.1 grade. Terrion Arnold ranks 102nd out of 106 graded cornerbacks in the NFL. He's already picked up 5 penalties. So if I'm the Seahawks, I'm like, how do I get Tyler Lockett up against Terrion Arnold flailing around and getting he might have double that many penalties by the time Tyler's done with him. So I think that this secondary is going to be challenged by the Seahawks offense in really significant ways, because if you take another man team, Geno plays his best against man. I put some grades up for the Seahawks receivers on Twitter yesterday. The Seahawks are a much better team against man coverage. But I kind of like every single one of those matchups. Brian Branch is he's been a nickel corner. Sometimes he comes down. I wouldn't be surprised if they use him. He's in concussion protocol, but I think he's going to play. Dan Campbell said things were looking good on Monday. So Brian Branch could figure into this, and he's the best of these guys as far as I'm concerned. I still, I still like the Seahawks matchup. I like Geno Smith in that situation. By the way, as I mentioned, the Lions have the 7th highest blitz rate in the NFL this year. It's almost a third of the snaps, 31%. They blitz. Geno Smith has the 5th highest grade for QBs when blitzed. He has 108.2 passer rating in those situations. So Geno Smith, I think, is great in that. I also think Pharaoh Brown is going to be a sneaky, valuable player in this game to help in pass protection. So that's another piece to this that I wanted to touch on, and then we'll move through as we go on here. One piece that I do want to highlight before I leave it, right here, defending the running back out of the backfield. I don't know why my color just changed. That's too bad. But in any event, defending the running back out of the backfield, the Seahawks are number 2 in the NFL so far in limiting running backs as receivers. Jahmyr Gibbs had 55 receptions last year. He's already got, I think, 11 receptions this year. They're going to test that for the Seahawks. So you know you're going to get David Montgomery up the middle. You know you're going to get Jahmyr Gibbs to the outside. You just know that that's going to be tested. And the linebackers, Tyrell Dodson, Jerome Baker, assuming he's back, or Tyrese Knight, or Drake Thomas, or whoever else they decide to throw in there, they're going to be asked to make plays. And the cornerbacks are going to be asked to make plays. So the safeties, I think, like, I talk about those things, and in past years, I'd be like, oh man, Quandre Diggs. Yikes. That's going to be rough. Coming up to support, coming up to make tackles in that way. This year, like, am I worried about Rayshon Jenkins, Julian Love, who's still the number 1 rated safety in the NFL, Kayvon Wallace, Kobe Bryant? Like, I think the Seahawks got the horses there, but they're going to be tested for sure. Excuse me. All right. Lemon juice, do your work. All right. So let's keep talking about the Seahawks offensively before we switch over to really the defense. I'm going to show you, when we get to the Lions offense, one of the prettiest plays you're going to see all year. Oh, such a gorgeous play. You've got Ryan Grubb against Aaron Glenn. And I'm not a huge Aaron Glenn guy. I think they are a good defense. I think their defense has been better than their offense this year. I think blitz heavy schemes don't hold up when it matters. And I just don't know that they have the horses. So one of the key things to know, you're going to hear all over the place about Aiden Hutchinson. You're going to hear about it all over the place. You should. Aiden Hutchinson leading the NFL in sacks, 6.5 sacks, leading NFL in pressures. He's got 25 pressures in 3 games. It's wild, right? Like, he's defensive player of the year, right there with, like, TJ Watt. I think they're equal in odds for that. Tell me who's the next leading pass rusher for the Lions. What is the next leading? Tell me how many sacks. So if Aiden Hutchinson has 6.5, how many sacks does the next leading rusher or pass rusher have for the Lions? What if I told you it was only 1? What if I told you that they only have 2 players on their team with 1 sack or more? 2. What if I told you they only have 3 players on the entire roster with a half a sack or more? That's it. That's it. They have got 3 guys that have a half a sack or greater. One of them is Levi Onwuzurike, or I think it's Onwuzurike, former Husky. He got hurt in this game as well. He is day-to-day. This past game, he got hurt in the Cardinals game. So, yes, Aiden Hutchinson's going to be a problem. Yes, you know, that's something he's going to be going up against Stone Forsythe. 100%. He went up against Jake Curhan last year. He had no sacks and 2 tackles. I don't think he's going to have another 0 game. That's not what I'm saying. I think that if you're an offensive coordinator, if you're Ryan Grubb, if you're Scott Huff, you would much rather go up against a team that has one excellent pass rusher than go up against like the Broncos that has a cadre of very good or good pass rushers. There's just a lot more to deal with. And so you can give Stone Forsythe help. You can put Pharaoh Brown over the top of Stone Forsythe and double Aiden all day long. You can double him and you can chip him with the running back. You can do all of those things. And yes, Aaron Glenn can blitz. Fine. It hasn't created a lot of pass pressure so far. And so when I look at, I'm curious. I'm going to look at this just to see. We'll see what. We'll look at a couple different pressure places. The Lions. I mean, according to Pro Football Reference, the Lions have like the 13th highest pressure rate. Let's take a look at next gen stats and see where they have the pressure rate. Top pressure rates. The Lions are 29th according to next gen stats. 29th highest pressure rate, 25.6%. Your Seahawks are sitting there at the 9th highest. So I just think, like, again, if you're talking about a defense that has 3 corners that don't scare you, and you got 3 receivers that you love, you've got a pass rush that has not been effective in getting home outside of one player. You've got a coordinator that likes to blitz a lot and a quarterback who loves to face the blitz and loves to face man defense. You got to like the matchup from a passing perspective for Geno Smith and Ryan Grubb and this team. I don't know how you can come to any other conclusion. People are going to be like, oh man, pass rush is going to kill him in this game. Maybe it will, but it won't be because that's what's been happening so far. The Seahawks have not had good pass protection in any of their games. They've been able to put up points. They've scored more points than the Lions. And that's with a few missed field goals as well. There could have been more in there. So what I think this picture tells us is, again, rushing yards. Seahawks offense has not been effective rushing the ball. Lions defense has been excellent at stopping the run. You got to be careful about getting a little too stubborn with that in this game. At the same time, your interior offensive line is best at run blocking. So you got to keep it involved to some extent. All right, let's keep going. So I really, that's the big thing I would take away on offense is I think the Seahawks have an advantage in the passing attack, and I think that that'll show up. The next thing I wanted to talk about is defensively. So Lions on offense. Let's have some fun here, and let me show you this other play I wanted to show you guys. All right. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Let's not put that up there. It is here. There we go. So let me find it first, and then I will play it for you. All right. Here is here is this play. If you guys haven't seen this yet, this is going to be one of the prettiest things you're going to see all season. A legit hook and ladder, easy touchdown. Watch this play unfold. All right. So what you have here, first of all, look at that pocket. I mean, that offensive line is the best in the NFL. It is 100% the best in the NFL. What Brad Johnson, no, not Brad Johnson, Ben Johnson. Sorry, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, does. He has Jahmyr Gibbs kind of leak out, right? You've got an in-breaking route here setting this up, and all the eyes, all the eyes of the defenders here. And I think this safety is responsible here. I don't know, but I think if you watch the way he's moving, he is trying to track what's going on. But look how the timing of this is just gorgeous. And at this point, all of these eyes are like, oh no. And you got the guy blocking down here, and he's just untouched. He's untouched. Beautiful, beautiful play. Kudos to Ben Johnson on that one. So what does that mean from a numbers perspective? What are the things there to pay attention to? So defensively, this is one thing I really want to emphasize. You are going to hear a lot from people about, I talked to you about Aiden Hutchinson. They're going to talk about, oh, the Seahawks pass blocking's terrible. Aiden Hutchinson's going to kill him. I told you why I think that that's a misunderstood aspect of this game. The other thing you're going to hear is the Seahawks defense has played nobody. They had the easiest schedule, which is true. The Lions offense has also played nobody. They have the 26th toughest schedule for an offense to have played. They played the Rams defense, which is last in the NFL. They played the Cardinals defense, which is one of the last in the NFL. And they played the Bucs defense, which is also not that good. So the Lions offense has not played anybody, but the difference between the Seahawks defense and the Lions offense is that the Seahawks defense has dominated those bad teams. The Lions offense has only scored more than 20 points once, and that was 26. So the Lions offense has struggled. Jared Goff has a passer rating under 80. Geno Smith's thrown 3 interceptions, and we're like, yeah, that's not good. Jared Goff has thrown 4 interceptions. In fact, you guys want to see him throw an interception? I think you do. Let's go back and look at that. Come on. Let's look at the interception because it was fun. So here is the Jared Goff interception. And on this play, watch Dennis Gardeck right here, okay? Jared Goff just completely misreads, sends his man in motion. And Goff right now is looking here, and he's expecting to be able to come back to this guy coming over the middle. He's like, this is going to be open because this is a defensive lineman. Defensive lineman should be coming forward, but he doesn't read the zone blitz properly. So what happens? He throws it right to him. So you can see right here, I mean, Goff just comes off that initial read and just delivers it right to the defender. If you're telling me that doesn't remind you of what Mike McDonald does, you're crazy. And guess what? How did Jared Goff do against Mike McDonald's defense in Baltimore last year? Worst game of the season. He had a fumble. He was sacked 5 times, threw an interception, no touchdowns. He had a 14.8 quarterback rating. Like, this is a thinking man's game against Mike McDonald. And if you're asking me, do I like Mike McDonald's chances to outthink Jared Goff? Yeah, I do. So that's one thing that I just wanted to call out there. From a Lions perspective, what you have to like is, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a fantastic receiver. To me, he is Doug Baldwin incarnate, tough, great route runner, great hands, just a really good receiver. And he put up 100 yards against the Seahawks last year. I think the Seahawks secondary is so different. The difference between the safety room, the corner room, the defensive scheme, the linebacker room, there's no, Bobby Wagner, as much as I love Bobby, there's no Bobby there to take advantage of. So, by the way, Darrell Taylor was starting at edge in that game. Boye Mafe wasn't even starting in that game. Derek Hall was a shell of who he was. It was Devin Witherspoon's first game. He got taken advantage of on a flea flicker, I believe. So, I don't think the Seahawks defense is very comparable. But if I'm the Lions, the way that I put together a winning formula here is I run down the Seahawks' throats. I absolutely run down their throats. So this here, we showed it on the other side. Lions run defense is better than the Seahawks run offense, at least to this point. Their run offense is better than the Seahawks run defense to this point. So the Lions, if they put up 140, 150, 160 yards rushing, they're going to make it tough on Seattle. It's just a tough team to defend in those situations. One of the challenges, if you ask a Lions fan what's the issue right now, they will talk about red zone offense. Lions have been to the red zone a bunch, but they have not been cashing those in. 26th in the NFL in red zone offense. Seahawks to this point are 4th in the NFL in red zone defense. They have been really effective in situational football. Mike McDonald talked about that on Monday. And so that's not just red zone. It's third down. It's fourth down. Nobody goes for fourth downs more often than Dan Campbell. Don't celebrate after they stop him on third down. You got to stop him for 4 downs a lot in this game. And the Seahawks defense have proven that they've got the mental fortitude to do just that. But I mean, the formula here is pretty straightforward for the Lions. It is mash them and then play action them to death and find open spaces. Sam Laporta, if he can play, would be an important part of this game. I think tight end will be an important part of this game plan. This is going to be a big linebacker game. This is going to be a big Jonathan Hankins game. I would feel much differently if if Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy were available. I'm assuming they're not going to be, and that's a huge, huge loss. Those guys are not replaceable. So you're going to have Jaron Reed, Jonathan Hankins. Those guys are going to have to play and play well. You're probably going to get Mike Morris a lot. You're going to get Miles Adams probably for the first time this season. So I see a question about where the Seahawks rank on stopping fourth downs. They are either 3rd or 4th in the NFL in stopping fourth downs. So that's where the Lions are going to feel most comfortable. If you can get them, if you can somehow keep them from running the football effectively, that would be awesome. I think that's a tall order. I think you should expect the Lions to be able to run the ball effectively. I do like the Seahawks pass defense against this Lions passing offense. I think they can make life really tough on Jared Goff. This is the special team stuff that I was going to share with you. Again, I mean, it's not great, but I don't know that I'm not, worried about most of this stuff. From a return perspective, both teams are pretty similar. And I actually really like the way D. Williams has looked the last couple of weeks. I think he's got his swagger and his confidence. And I think he's set to be a big factor for this team. He's had huge returns in each of the last 2 games. And so I'm not afraid of D. Williams being a big part of this game. And I think he can flip the field like he's done. So I'm going to start wrapping here on this first look episode, this deep dive. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. I'd appreciate it. I'm going to run right back here in a couple minutes and we'll get Big Ray's Rewind kicked off. So if you are watching this on replay and you want to see that, it's up there as well. I'm trying to do this for people that don't watch the show live. It's nice to be able to have these available as separate episodes. That's why I'm doing it this way. Appreciate folks for jumping through a few gymnastics here to make it possible. But I think that there are some serious misnomers about this matchup. I think that the two that I'm going to keep hammering are the passing attack for the Seahawks has a good matchup against this Lions team. I like the matchup. I like the scheme matchup. I like the player matchup. I like the defensive coordinator matchup. I like all of it. What I don't like is how they've been pass protecting. So, that's it. On the other side, the Lions offense has not played well against pretty bad defenses, really bad defenses. But they have been effective running the football. So for the Seahawks to really have a shot to win, they're going to have to do something I think that they haven't done as much lately, which is turn the ball over. I think that's very possible in this game to do. I think Jared Goff is the type of quarterback that will make those kinds of mistakes. And I think Mike McDonald's defense is the type that can force it. But if they give up 180 plus yards rushing, it might not matter. So that's the place where this game is going to be decided. Seahawks pass offense versus the Lions run offense and the opposing defense's ability to slow those down. All right, folks. I will see you all in just a moment as we get Big Ray Roberts in here for Big Ray's Rewind. It's going to be fun. I will see you all on the other side. Take care.